Welcome to the Open Door Policy. Each week on this podcast, we sit down with a different guest and talk about a letter. Archbishop Vigneron's Unleash the Gospel pastoral letter.
Let's do it. Let's talk about it.
All right.
Be about it.
Each guest we have on this show we think is living it out in a new and exciting way. This time on Open Door Policy, we sit down with Matthew Barrett, a young attorney and father of 7 who is walking with the Lord and helping his children become joyful missionary disciples.
Welcome to the Open Door Policy Studio. Matthew, how are you?
I'm great, thanks.
How are you, Father Steve?
I'm great. It's great to be here with Matt and you, Danielle.
Oh, the pleasure is mine. Are you ready to jump into rapid fire questions?
I was born ready.
Ooh,
Question
confident.
number 1. What was the coolest article of clothing you had when you were a kid?
My Orlando Magic starter jacket.
Look for the stars, and you'll find...
What was the weirdest food you have ever eaten?
Probably black pudding in Ireland.
Pudding is chocolate and dessert and sweet. You told me I'm going to have black pudding.
Matt, what's your favorite piece of religious art?
The Calling of St. Matthew by Caravaggio.
If your life was made into a movie, what genre would it be and who would play you?
Let's go with a 90s Disney sports movie, and I would be played by... let's go with John C. Reilly.
Shake and bake.
What do you remember about church as a kid?
The music.
Would you prefer hamburger, pizza, or taco?
Definitely tacos.
Of all the places you've traveled, where would you like to return?
The west coast of Ireland.
And what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Do whatever he tells you.
Matt, if you had to teach a class, what could you teach a class on?
It'd probably be something legal, so I don't know, some business law class, but that wouldn't be as fun, so let's go with like an intro to philosophy class.
If you could pick your confirmation saint today, who would you pick?
I would stick with St. Peter, although St. Thomas would be right up there as well.
Thomas Aquinas, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
You're welcome. This is great.
Can I jump
Go ahead,
back
Danielle.
into these? But you picked the picture, The Calling of St. Matthew.
I did, yeah. So, being a Matthew, that was a natural pick for me. And just seeing it around, I think I read somewhere that it's Pope Francis's favorite piece of artwork.
Did you know about it for a long time, or have you come to this more recently?
No, certainly in more recently as an adult. I mean, I didn't know it as a kid. Probably in my early to mid 20s.
Okay.
I just love it. It's if you're not familiar with the piece, you can look it up on Wikipedia or something. But it's just
It's very powerful.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it's the light and the dark and just Jesus coming into everyday life, and you're in the middle of your workday, you're in the middle of whatever you're doing, and him just ripping you from that and putting you somewhere else.
Yeah. We're the same age. We were talking before we started rolling here.
We're both
the
25.
Same. Yeah. But I love that you chose a starter jacket.
Yeah.
So Orlando Magic,
What
I'm
is that?
thinking...
Wait, is that the half thing?
What is a starter jacket?
Sorry, I don't know.
Sorry,
It's for the
Danielle.
listeners that I'm asking,
Okay.
obviously.
No, so like early mid 90s, I think I was in like probably 6 years old, 7 years old. This is probably the first tough decision I ever remember making.
Yeah.
Because my parents said I could get a starter jacket, and I had to pick between the Orlando Magic. I don't remember who I didn't choose, but it was probably like the Charlotte Hornets or something, because that was...
Alonzo Mourning.
Yeah. LJ.
LJ.
Yeah.
Did you have one?
Oh, so we didn't have a starter. We had the knockoff brand, and I had University of Miami Hurricanes one.
Okay.
But I loved, everyone had it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which maybe ties into if your life was made into a movie. It would be a 90s Disney sports movie, which is like the kind where the team is losing, but they get a good pep talk, and the power was inside them all along. They win, is like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So the Mighty Ducks come to
Ducks.
mind.
We're Team USA, gathered from all across America. And we're gonna stick together.
Sandlot,
Everybody gets one chance to do something great. This is your big chance.
Rookie of the Year,
What are you doing out here?
Well, what am I supposed to do?
Deal from you have to.
Cool Runnings.
Is the best push cart driver in all of Jamaica. You're looking at them, then you gotta do it. No!
So St. Peter, though, is really your guy.
Yeah, so he is my confirmation saint, and I would stick with him today. I just love that he's so relatable. I mean, obviously not as Pope, the first Pope, and as a saint, but like
the rest of it.
Yeah, just like such a broken, guy who screwed up like all of us screw up, and yet he was the rock on which Jesus built his church. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah, what I love about Peter is like his zeal. Like there's times when he is just like so excited, and then you see times where he is such a coward, right?
Like someone pointed this out to me. I think it's so funny. Is like Jesus' resurrection is announced. Spoiler alert! When this comes out during Lent, and they're like, he's like running, but then like he doesn't get there first, but he's like the first to run, so he like ran too fast and like got tired. I'm like, I feel that.
Yeah, that's a big joke in our household. My dad is his name is Peter, and so my mom always jabs him in the ribs during that reading because he is also slow.
Awesome.
But he has the great, he says, he's the one who calls Jesus God, and it makes that great statement, and it's just such a powerful thing, and you can see him trying and failing, but trying again, and it's great I think, a great example for us.
Yeah, amen.
Thanks so much.
Oh, you're welcome. This is great.
Hey, Matt, we'd love to hear, as we do with all of our guests, like your story of how you became a disciple of Jesus.
Yeah, so, first I would say I think I'm still on my way. I'm certainly not there yet.
Yeah.
We all are.
But,
we would hope.
Danielle and I aren't, but Father Steve maybe.
Just kidding. Sorry, Matt. Go ahead.
I grew up in a very Catholic household. So my parents were both very devout. Even my grandparents, great-grandparents, we were just a very Catholic family. Went to a Catholic high school, discerning college, and felt between several choices and felt really called and ended up at Notre Dame, which was a great experience for me. Just having the Mass and having the Eucharist so present throughout, being able to go to daily Mass at 10 p.m. and as a college kid was great, and being able to, just sit in front of the tabernacle when you were having an issue was just wonderful. And also, growing up with a huge sort of focus on Mary and devotion to Mary, it was just a great place to have her on top of the Golden Dome watching down on us. And that's where I met my wife. I mean, that was probably the biggest moment after that in my faith development, because she grew up in a very similar household. So,
was she from Metro Detroit?
No. So she's from southern New Mexico. So a bit of a culture shock there.
Yeah.
But what was great was we found out, despite southern New Mexico and Metro Detroit, so much in common culturally. At the heart of it, we both grew up very Catholic families.
The universality of the church, right?
Yeah, oh, for sure, exactly. Yeah, the communion of saints. And
so married at 23. Finishing law school.
Yeah.
Living in D.C.
No, sorry, back in Michigan.
Okay. So where's your faith? You and your wife, your family. Where's your faith at? Is it still pretty strong at this point?
Yeah, I think it was definitely strong in terms of the sacraments, but again, probably not always living, trying to have probably a common theme throughout my life is where I fall is trying to have a foot in the world and a foot in the faith. That's a constant challenge for me, and one that I hope I'm getting better at. I wouldn't say we were on fire. We were going to Mass, we were saying rosaries, praying together, but I wouldn't say I wasn't on fire. Moving out west was a huge eye-opener for us. This was like a turning point probably in my faith journey.
Okay.
We moved to Orange County and didn't really know anybody. I had interned out there the summer before, so I knew some people I worked with. But we literally pulled up to our apartment, sight unseen. We'd signed the papers, sight unseen, and go to Mass the next day. We moved in on a Saturday. Go to Mass the next day, and out front is this young woman who has two little kids, or one little kid, I guess, hanging on her, and she's starting a mom's group, like a Catholic mom's group, that day.
Oh,
like,
wow.
that's like the day she was starting and trying to get people involved. So it was so providential, and we just fell in with this great group of on fire Catholics. I had never been in that circle before. Mm-hmm. My faith had always been something that it was kind of like, I think Father Ricardo calls it sometimes, like the me and Jesus two-step.
Yeah.
Like, it was mine. Like, I wasn't talking to people. I wasn't engaging in people. These weren't like my friends.
Conversations. Yeah.
And this was the first time that I was in a circle of people like this.
What would you say was your biggest takeaway from being a part of that community?
Wanting to bring it back to Detroit, because I didn't feel, and part of this was probably my own ignorance. There probably were groups like that that I just either turned a blind eye towards or that I didn't know about.
Sure.
And wanting to bring something like that back. And my wife was in this great Bible study, and, there was just all these people who were just on fire, who were great examples for my kids, and we would all hang out together, and it was really special. And wanting to bring that back, and especially my faith tends to be more intellectual, and that's where I can fall short. Is I love the intellectual side of the faith, but that can lead you to not bringing it out as much in the world as you should, and that's what really I took from that. So coming back, we had all these grand plans of all this, we were going to start all these Bible studies and these groups and whatever.
Yeah.
I was trying to start up again and trying to find places to do this. And I found the Archdiocese young adults page, although I was really pushing the boundaries of young adults at that time. But
more adult than
young.
More
adult. Yeah, I was in denial a little bit. But I found a new ministry that was starting here, Young Catholic Professionals. So there was a national organization that had about 15 chapters around the country. It started in Texas. And they were starting one in Michigan in the Archdiocese of Detroit, and they really wanted, they were looking for people to join and help start it. And it just sounded perfect. The ministry, exactly what they were looking for, and it was just the most beneficial thing for me, because it was just like God shaking me, like rattling my cage of you said you were going to do all this stuff, and you sort of haven't.
So getting involved in Young Catholic Professionals, YCP, was a pretty important step for your own spiritual growth, for your relationship with Christ, and making that kind of grow.
It was the first time that I really took my faith into the public square, kind of, like in a formal way.
What was that like for you as you made that change? Was that a little scary? Was that
No, it wasn't.
Exciting?
It was exciting. It was exciting, and it was just a special time here in the Archdiocese too, because we had our retreat, like our kickoff retreat, the week after Unleash the Gospel came out. So it was the week after Pentecost. It was so providential. The Spirit was just so at work, and you couldn't deny it. I mean, it was just so plain,
Coming up on 2 years of YCP, what would you say has been like some of the biggest grace that you've experienced?
Yeah, so just seeing the number of people who've come to events and I think taken something away from it has been powerful. So we put on probably 20 events a year, 15 to 20 events a year, and we average a little over 100 people per event. It's just such a needed ministry, and it ties in so perfectly with Unleash the Gospel.
Yeah, this makes me think, I feel like we've talked about this a couple of times, Danielle. We go back to some of these themes, it seems like, but one of them is like, our faith grows by sharing it with others, right?
Yeah.
So by taking ownership and witnessing to your faith, that's an opportunity for you to grow as well. Just like, anytime we share Jesus with someone, we're doing it to give them the greatest gift we have, but it also makes us more fully belong to Christ when we become a missionary disciple for him.
And also the importance of that sacred community. Like, would you be here if it wasn't for that mom standing outside of that church in California, being like, hey, bring your babies here. Like, her faithfulness has fueled a faithfulness in Detroit, like, what a beautiful witness.
It's so true. I mean, and God works in such awesome ways of, and you don't always see the fruits. I think that's one of the most important things to remember as you're going out in the world and sharing the faith is you might be sowing, you're not going to be reaping, right? You might not see it, right?
Yep.
You're not sowing. So to know that because it's happened in my life or it's happened in your life, that you see the benefits from somebody who might not even know what they did for you, that it gives you faith that the same thing you're trying to do might bear fruit too.
And now you're sharing all those benefits with the ODP audience.
Yeah.
Thanks be to God.
Yeah, thanks.
My friend, we were talking a little bit earlier about the Unleash the Gospel letter and comparing and contrasting good and bad habits. And we were talking about complaining attitude versus attitude of gratitude. You want to kind of jump in there?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that it really struck me was, a common temptation in the church today is complain, we don't have the same power or prestige we used to. I took that even beyond in other resources. We don't have there might not be the same music minister that you like, or you might not have the same whatever. And people can complain that, this...
The homily's not as good.
Yeah, that's right. Father Steve's, rambling.
I have never heard anything like this said. Just kidding. I work in a church.
Yeah. And
that has a 300-year history.
Yeah.
So.
And it's so easy in our society today that, we've become... snark has such a place in our culture today, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of how people communicate. It's Twitter bashing and, there's just, it's everywhere and all over social media. It's just sort of how we relate. And
kind of a way to bond, too.
Yeah.
Like, that person bugged me. Oh, they bugged me, too.
Right. And that's how we find commonality is almost like what we complain about stuff together or find fault with things together, which is so unhealthy, especially in the church. And
it's like the spirit. It's the spirit of the world. It's not the spirit of Christ, right? Because there's plenty to complain about or plenty of imperfections, but to be a disciple of Jesus is to know that the cross is going to be part of our lives.
Absolutely. I mean, it's if you're not expecting some suffering, you're not doing it right. You haven't read, Scripture.
Read the gospel.
Sirach, read anything. It's, And the counterbalance to that is an attitude of gratitude. And this is something with my own kids that's really important in our house.
So what's the age range for your kids?
So
again,
my oldest is 10 and my youngest is 6 months.
Okay.
So we have 7.
I hate those complaining 6-month-olds. Right?
Gosh, it's like, I have a dirty diaper, change me. Stop complaining. No. So it is. I mean, it's so easy to forget what we have that's good. Everybody's always looking for more, and you're never satiated. And obviously, and that's because we're not going to find that except in Christ, right? I mean, it's pretty clear. Like, you will never find that in the world, and so it's no surprise that the world hasn't found it. But it's just, to have that gratitude puts everything in the way you view things in a different perspective, and it lets you approach things with, the right approach and really recognize all God's gifts in your life. And it's so huge for kids.
How do you cultivate that in a child?
A big part of it is, in prayer, like, we thank God for different things, right? And so sometimes my 2-year-old thanks him for hockey sticks, and that's great. And it's it's like, hey, more power. You love hitting things with hockey sticks, so thank
as
God
long
for
as
his
it's not a sibling.
Well, that's not. Yeah, that's.
We're working on a lot of lessons.
Yeah, we'll see.
I think of just culturally how different. We were talking about starter jackets earlier, which is awesome, and I want to bring this in as many times as possible. But like you had mentioned, going to the store and there were 2 different kinds, and you're like, okay, I'm going to pick one of these and I'm going to love it, right?
Oh, and it's
and now everything is at our fingertips. So like it's a lot harder to cultivate an attitude of gratitude when like I can get on Amazon anything, anything in 2 days delivered to my door.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? We're flooded with choices, just even in how we communicate with each other. you can find out what's going on all the time, and
right.
You're never satisfied. You're always looking for something more because you can see so much more of what's out there.
Yeah.
And that's just not the approach to have. It's just not.
Danielle, how do you think just thinking about cultivating that attitude of gratitude, how do we do that?
Have you ever read Anne Voskamp, 1,000 Gifts?
And who?
Get on my hipster level, friends. But it's okay. I didn't read the whole thing either. But it's about this. It's a really fascinating story about this woman who decided in 1 year she was going to write down 1,000 things that she was grateful for. Just fascinating to see through that lens. So what I like to do to cultivate a spirit of gratitude is just like practice that. Like in a day, like what am I thankful for? And I like to be around people who it comes more naturally to.
Yeah.
Like shout out to my friend Julia. I love traveling with her. She's an architect, as you know. So it'd be like walking down, like prime example, we went out to brunch. We were leaving brunch and she was like, Danielle, did you notice the tile against the bathroom, that lovely shade of green? And I was like, I did not. This is why I like traveling with you, is because you are more apt to see that beauty and respond to it than I am. So I would say, like, I like it in my life. I like it in other people's lives so that I can, like, piggyback off of it.
So them modeling it helps you do it.
Then I'm like, oh, yeah, I love that green.
Yeah. No, for sure. And that's something we can offer as disciples, right? We need to be bringing all that type of stuff into the world more in our, for me, I don't work for the church, right? I'm a lawyer, I have a different job. And there's so many opportunities to bring in different things, including the spirit of gratitude, into the workplace. And I just think that's such a important ministry today of, just little things that you can do, in the workplace of showing, modeling behavior. And it's not to, I have my bad days too, so it's not that I always succeed at it, but, and evangelizing through that. I mean, I one of the things that I've found so powerful is, just little acts in the workplace that remind people that you're a Christian, I mean, it's simple stuff.
Like what?
Oh, it's grace before meals. And when you sit down at a lunch table and everybody just, sits in, and you like stop and like close your eyes and bow your head a little bit and make the sign of the cross and say prayers and then finish and then join the conversation, people notice that. Right. It's little, it's stupid stuff. It's, saying God bless you when someone sneezes.
Yeah. Sometimes people feel so uncomfortable to do those things. Like people are going to, what do you think, you're better than I? Like I cannot think of an occasion where I've heard someone getting a dirty look or thought less of for praying before their meal or for saying God bless you or, just simple acts of being authentic to your faith. Not about being showy, not about being pushy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Being authentic about what it means to say, hey, I want to thank God before my meal or, this is how I respond.
Do
when
that
someone
publicly,
sneezes.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the public, but it always has to come from a place of authenticity.
And I suppose that does evangelize, doesn't it? That's
I really think it
gratitude.
does. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a soft evangelization and it opens the door and it kind of builds a relationship, right?
Yeah.
And it's about you witnessing to who you are.
And also building virtue, right? Because you're building the virtue of like hope and like recognizing beauty and where it comes from.
We always have to bring Christ into everything we do, but we have to do that with someone, you know what I mean? It's not like walking around whacking people upside the head. I don't think that works that well.
Yeah, I haven't found that effective. I've tried that.
You should talk to my 10-year-old.
Built that into the program.
A lot of whacking across the head. Yeah.
I think there's a lot here to talk about. I just want to go back to the complaining attitude aspect too, because I think that's a great way to evangelize, especially in the workplace, like even in the church, it happens, right? Like,
really?
We are so quick to complain or to find like why my life is harder than everyone else's, and pretty quick to share that with other people too. To not enter into that really kind of makes our life a witness to other people.
It does, and it's a challenge. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Like, that's a real challenge. Like,
Well, I just think about your example, Danielle, about your friend being grateful and how attractive that is. Not complaining is attractive. Now, there might be times when we want to complain and we're repelled from people who don't want to hear our complaining. But most of the time when I think about my life, people who are complaining a lot are not people I want to be around. And those who can endure graciously or even heroically difficulties are people I want to be around. I aspire to be like, and they're just more pleasant to be around.
Isn't there a great John Paul II quote of, we are not the sum of our failures, but the sum of God's love for us
and our ability to show the identity of Jesus Christ, his son.
Yeah.
Man, you guys tag team that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm preparing a talk with that quote in it. So that's how I knew it. Yeah, I hear you on that, though.
Yeah. But, it's one of those things, I think, in the workplace, I'm big on, virtues between vice, right? There's vice on either side.
Yeah.
And so you have to really know yourself to know which side of the virtue you're failing on so that you move towards the right way, right? If you're a scrupulous person, like, you shouldn't be focusing so much on, your own brokenness and where you're falling short, because that you're falling on that side. If you're somebody who's, out there and thinking, not noticing that, then maybe you do need to pay a little bit more attention to your own shortcomings, but obviously never
apart from Jesus.
Yeah, because it's through, this is your God, and you owe him your life. You owe him, he's everything. So you have to give of yourself of that. And when you fall short, it makes you sad because you're not giving him what his due is, but his mercy's always there.
Monsignor Dan Trapp would always say the two things that the devil will try to steal from you are your identity and your destiny. So that's what you're speaking into is keeping your eyes focused on Jesus, right?
Yeah.
And stay rooted in your destiny.
Your identity, where you came from, your destiny, where you're going.
Right.
And if you don't have that in mind, it's like driving aimlessly without knowing your destination.
Spot on.
So, Matt, before we close, we always ask our guests if there's a quote, a prayer, anything they want to share with our listeners as a final word.
Love God, follow him, and spend time with him discerning his will, and go where he leads.
Amen.
I know Danielle and I had a lot of fun talking with Matt about how we can get rid of our complaining attitudes and how we can more fully take on an attitude of gratitude.
Be sure to subscribe and like us on iTunes and to bring your friends along for the ride. And if the Holy Spirit has inspired you while listening today, be sure to pass this episode along to someone else who might enjoy it. Open Door Policy was produced at Sacred Heart Major Seminary for the Archdiocese of Detroit. We'd like to thank our creative team, Christine Warner, Ron Pangborn, Paul Duda, Patrick Hodgson, Devin Buston, Patty Maldonado, Naomi Vrezo, Joe Peltier, Epsi Cristostomo, and Edmundo Reyes. Join us next time when Father Steve introduces new ways to unleash the gospel.
What's your favorite kind of square dancing? I'm Father Steve Poulos with Danielle Center.
And this has been another episode of Open Door Policy. Hi, this is Danielle from Open Door Policy, and I wanted to let you know that for Season 2, we have new social media channels for you to connect and follow Open Door Policy. So be sure to follow at Open Door Detroit on Twitter and Facebook. Tell us what you think of the latest episodes and follow along for the latest updates on all things Open Door Policy. Thanks, friends.